For the retake video, I want to start with these reminders that we ended the last video with, reminding us that if we don't have the half of an equal sign on the bottom, we are keeping an open circle, which means that we cannot be exactly the number that we're shading about. If you do have the equal sign on the bottom, you can be the number that you are shading. So for example, x is less than or equal to 3 means that 3 would be one of the possible solutions. If I had x is just less than 3, that means 3 is not a solution, so then it would have to be something like 2.5 or 2.25, any number that is smaller than 3. When you're checking your answers, you have to remember to have one true and one false statement. And finally, the most important one here, if you are multiplying or dividing by a negative number, you must remember to flip the sign. Not add or subtract, multiply or divide by a negative number only. Let's do a couple small examples. For the first example, we have 2x plus 6 is greater than 12. We're going to start by drawing our line down our inequality sign, and we are going to subtract 6 from both sides. I then am left with 2x is greater than positive 6. From here, I'm going to divide everything by positive 2. Because this is a positive number, I do not flip the sign, and I am left with x is greater than the number 3. To shade down on the bottom, I start with the number 3, and I fill in the rest of my number line. This is an open circle. And as a reminder, the alligator is eating the bigger number. And in this case, the bigger number is the variable, which means we want numbers that are bigger than 3. And this is what we're left with. To check our answer, we pick one number that's in the false range. And I'm going to pick 1. And we're hoping this creates a false statement when plugged back in. And on the right side, we got to pick 1 from the true range. And I'm going to take 5. You'll notice in my examples, I love using the numbers 5 and 0 and 1. They're definitely easier numbers to work with. So let's do the false one first. I plug it back in here for x. So I get 2 times 1 plus 6 is greater than 12. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 plus 6 is 8. Which is not bigger than 12. Therefore, we have our false statement. For the problem on the right, we're hoping this makes a true statement. So I'm going to do 2 times 5 plus 6. We're hoping this is greater than 12. 2 times 5 is 10. 10 plus 6 is greater than 12. Therefore, we must have this problem correct. Let's do one that's a little bit more difficult. We have negative 15 is greater than or equal to 3 parentheses 2y minus 5. First step is always drawing that line down our equal sign or inequality sign. Now I see parentheses, so I'm going to do the distributive property to get rid of those parentheses. So I have negative 15 is greater than or equal to 3 times 2y is 6y. 3 times negative 5 is negative 15. Now I have to get rid of this negative 15 over here. So I'm going to add 15 to both sides. And I'm hoping you see something weird goes on here. We actually get rid of both. Well, getting rid of it means that there is a 0 left. And I have 0 is greater than or equal to 6y. From here, I'm going to divide everything by 6. And I get 0 is greater than or equal to y. And now I just have to graph. Probably the easiest number line we've had all day, because we like when they start with 0. Now, in this case, 0 is bigger than y. Therefore, we are shading the smaller numbers, which will be to the left. Now, in order to check our answer, I'm actually going to have you do this one on your own to save us a little bit of time, but I'll probably build in a question that has to do with this check. Our last problem looks really different, but actually it's exactly like what we've been doing with one small change. It actually does not use the distributive property because inside of the parentheses is only one specific number. So we are only multiplying times the negative 3x, not the 2 left in the back. So 4 times negative 3x is negative 12x. This time the 2 is going to just stay because it was not in the parentheses. And I'm going to do less than 26. From here, it's just like what we've been doing. We are going to subtract 2 from both sides of the equation. And I get 24 and negative 12x left over. From here, I'm going to divide both sides by negative 12. And I'm hoping you remember from the last video that if you multiply or divide by a negative number, that means you have to flip the sign. So in this case, we will get x, or 1x. We're going to flip the sign to greater than negative 2. From here, we're going to shade just like we've been doing. I have negative 2 in the middle. Now, in this case, x is going to be bigger than negative 2. It is an open circle, and we are going to shade to the right. For our check, I'm going to pick 1 in the true range, which I'm going to pick x equals 0. Love working with zeros. And in the false range, I'm going to take x is equal to negative 5. Okay, for my false range, I'm going to do 4 parentheses, negative 3 times negative 5 plus 2. And I want that to not be less than negative 26. Well, this is positive 15. 4 times 15 is 60. 60 plus 2 is less than 26, which is a false statement. Whoops. And finally, for our last one, our true statement, we want 4 times negative 3 times 0 plus 2, and we want that to be less than 26. This is equal to 0. 4 times 0 is still 0. 0 plus 2 is less than 26, making this a true statement, which means our problem has to be correct. There's a lot of stuff with linear inequalities, but most of it is stuff that you've seen partially in other places. It's just putting a lot of stuff together. As always, if you have any questions, please let me know.